All right, hey everybody, this is Chad Jordan from Sport Clips. This is another edition of our Hall of Fame podcast. I got a couple Hall of Famers with me today. This episode is part of our Haircuts with Heart series, in which we look at a couple of the causes that Sport Clips supports around the country. And this one will be featured. Those of you watching on YouTube, you can already see this one's probably going to be what this one's going to be about. It's St. Baldrick's Foundation, which is about childhood cancer research and funding that and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into a lot of that stuff today. I got two very special guests with me. I am going to have the very youngest of the two special guests go ahead and introduce. Okay, I want your name, remember your age, what grade you're going into. I'm going to add that. And your favorite college basketball team. All right, let's hear it from you. Who are you?
My name is Scott. I'm 10 years old, and I'm going into 5th grade.
Good.
And my favorite college basketball team is the Tar Heels.
Yes, go Heels. Okay. We're in Raleigh, by the way, area. Chapel Hill is very nearby. And you'll find out in a minute why he's especially fond of the Tar Heels. But alongside him is special guest number 2. I'm going to go ahead and have her introduce herself for us and tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi, my name is Nancy Lenfestey, and I'm an advocacy and family relations specialist with the St. Baldrick's Foundation.
And your favorite college, just college, period?
UNC?
Yes, UNC. So you're an alum?
I am.
Okay.
My husband and I are both, and that's where he got his treatment, so
Awesome.
Forever indebted.
Awesome. So, we're excited today, not just because we're in one of my favorite states in all the world, the country and the world, but we have Scott and Nancy, and they're going to walk us through a little bit of their journey with childhood cancer. Nancy, as she mentioned, now works with St. Baldrick's, and we want to kind of loop all that in together, and we really want to drive home the importance of childhood cancer research. Scott is literally a living and walking and good-looking testimony to the power of great treatment and good research. So, all right. So let's start with you, Scott. You at 3 years of age, right? Thereabout. I'm sure you remember it well. But you were diagnosed with what?
I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, or ALL as it is more commonly known.
Oh, I think you still have part of that speech memorized, buddy. That sounded pretty professional. Do you remember anything about the early diagnosis, treatment, going in and out of the hospital? Do you remember any of that stuff?
I remember a little bit of it.
What parts?
Pain cavity.
Okay.
And I remember spinal taps.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Are those? Do you remember them because you kind of have nightmares about them, or you
No,
dread
I just
maybe
remember,
ever?
like, I would go in and my dad would sit me on his lap, and then they would give me the propofol, and then he would put me on the bed,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was asleep for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm. So maybe, Mom, we'll have you step in. He's 3 years old.
Yeah.
Why don't you turn the mic to you for this portion, if you don't mind? He's 3 years old. You had it's a 5-year-old son.
Yes, we had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-month-old.
Okay.
And
You had your hands full, in other words, like so many families out there. Yeah.
And I remember we were going out of town one weekend. We were driving, I looked behind me and I saw Scott, and he was extremely pale, like a sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I remarked to my husband, Rob, Scott looks really pale today, and I don't know if it's a virus or...
Had he had a fever or anything going into this trip, or anything that...
Nothing that stood out.
Mm-hmm.
So, absent any symptoms, we just kind of
Right.
We'll just keep an eye on it. We get to the hotel, start checking in, and on the counter is a bowl of fake fruit. And Scott says, oh, that looks yummy. And then Nick, our 5-year-old, said, Scott, you can't eat that, not like the time you ate all those fake grapes in our playroom. And we're like, wait, what? What did you just say? And apparently, we had been given some fake fruit as play food,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a bunch of grapes and they were detachable, and Scott had eaten not just one,
Wow.
but several.
Is this like days before this trip, and now it explains why he's turning pale or anything like that?
Well,
or?
we tried to figure out by asking the 5-year-old, when did this happen?
Right,
How long
right.
ago? And of course, he didn't have a really great concept of length of time, so we had no clue. Was this over the summer? Was it last week? And prior to this, Scott was completely healthy, like good eater, good sleeper, never difficult, never had a sick visit to the doctor.
Wow.
And so it just so happened that we had a well child check 2 days later. So we went ahead and emailed the pediatrician and said, we just received some interesting information. Would you mind?
Kids being kids.
Would you mind if we added a CBC to the well child check just to rule out maybe lead poisoning, because we were thinking maybe that's why.
Yeah. So that's great. The paranoid parent gene kicked in that we
yeah.
all have.
Yes.
And that kind of prompted you guys to ask for something that you might not have requested on
if we didn't
a couple
have
days
that
later.
little bit of information. So went to the well child check, vision check, fine, everything looked good. And then at 9 o'clock that night, we get a call from the pediatrician, and he said, I'm afraid I have some concerning news. I just immediately thought, oh, lead poisoning. Huh?
Right.
And he said,
I knew it.
Yeah. I was like, oh, it's that lead poisoning. And no, it was leukemia, which came out of nowhere. I mean, I did not even think that was a possibility. And at that time, Scott was running up and down the hall upstairs. I'm like, there's no way. There has to be a mistake, because he seems okay for the most part. So ran up to my husband. I said, oh, pediatrician's on the phone, and he's concerned that Scott has leukemia. And my husband's a physician, so he's like, wait, there must be some mistake. But talked through it with the pediatrician, who then said, I've made an appointment for you with the division chief of pediatric hematology oncology at UNC for the very next morning. So didn't sleep at all that night.
I'm sure. I mean, the shock of it with you not, so many families that get the diagnosis, there's been something maybe leading up to it. They're bruising or some sickness or something, and so that's a fear in the back of their head that maybe, what if it's cancer? You're literally thinking maybe he just ate something wonky.
Yes.
So the shock of that night, I'm sure you weren't able to sleep.
Not at all. We went the next morning, still in shock. My husband, the oncologist actually offered for my husband to look at the slides under the microscope, just because he still couldn't believe it.
Right.
Confirmed it, and then boom, boom, boom. Oh, we have a room for you upstairs. We've scheduled him for surgery for tomorrow to have a port placed.
Yeah.
I forgot to bring the port.
And it's been
And
removed, I assume.
yeah,
Okay.
but we kept it as a souvenir.
All right.
Had surgery the next day, started chemo, and he just didn't have time to process everything. And so just thinking, here we are the week before Thanksgiving.
Oh, I hadn't even figured that part out yet. Okay.
Yeah, the week before
What a mercy.
Thanksgiving. And not that there's ever a good time to be diagnosed, but that was certainly not a good time.
Holidays rolling around. Yeah.
And all these thoughts running through your head, like, how are we going to get through this? And I remember asking, how long is the treatment? I had no clue. They said it's 2 years for girls and 3 years for boys, because leukemia tends to like to hang out in the testes and in the brain.
Yep.
So they need an extra year treatment. And I thought, do kids even make it through 3 years of treatment? Because he's 3 now. By the time he's 6, he will have been on chemo for half of his life.
Yeah.
Like, how many people make it through? And then you start wondering, is this going to be our last Thanksgiving and Christmas together? I mean, you can't help but go through that thought process. But kind of let myself have a pity party for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then it's like, we can't continue on for 3 years with this mindset. Something's got to change.
Yeah.
So then our mentality kind of morphed into, what's next on the list? What do we have to do next? But it was always contained to one day. Like, we could only do one day at a time because it was just too overwhelming. There were too many unknowns. But he transformed from this happy-go-lucky kid at the beginning of treatment to, at the end of the first month, he had been on steroids for an entire month, and his stomach was distended. His legs got really scrawny and spindly because they lost muscle tone.
Yep.
He couldn't walk. He was crawling or had to be carried, which at 3, you know, is not typical. And it was just like, wow, where did that child go in just a month? And his mood changed, and it was a very difficult transition. But we knew we had to do what we had to do. So.
At the time, you guys have family nearby. What kind of support system did you have?
We do have some family. My husband's family lives in Greensboro.
Okay.
And then I have a brother in Raleigh, and friends and neighbors. I mean, throughout this experience, I've realized that I had renewed faith in humanity, because we always hear about the bad stuff. But people were coming out of the woodwork, you know, strangers willing to help. Child with cancer, I guess it really, you know, pulls at the heartstrings, and it was a difficult time, but there are definitely highlights, and I think we've managed to pull together and learn things along the way, like enjoy the time you have together, because things change in an instant. Because before the day he was diagnosed, we were just thinking, you know, this week we've got a big dilemma. Do we go to martial arts, or do we go to the PTA magic show?
Right. The priorities of life, you know.
That was what we were facing, and then everything out the window, reprioritize, and it was cold and flu season.
Oh,
so,
right. It's very susceptible to catching something, and especially with 2 other kids. Was the 5-year-old in kindergarten?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
So we ended up having to homeschool him for a while just to get through cold and flu season. We had the baby. And that's hard for families when you're separated, because my husband was at the hospital with Scott, but the other 2 needed to have some normalcy too.
Right.
So we were split up. We had to use FaceTime and talk and watch movies together simultaneously. Them at the hospital, us at home.
Was Christmas that year spent at the hospital, or was he home?
He was lucky to be home.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was home, but I was like crawling around on the floor.
So, were there touch and go moments? When was the first time where things, that's probably the scariest, getting diagnosed? Were there other times where it looked like we're in trouble here?
Yeah, I mean, he spent a week in the hospital after diagnosis, and we thought, you know, we're saying goodbye to the nurses, and you know, hope we don't have to see you again in a while. And 2 weeks we were back. 2 weeks later we were back. Then you wonder, is this what it's going to be like? Like, come back every 2 weeks for a week or more. But there was a period where he had a virus, and it made his lab levels just plummet. And so when your lab levels plummet, they cut back on his medication, and they said, okay, well, it's going to do more harm than good to give him medication when he's at this level. So let's wait a week or so and come back and recheck, and then we can resume the medication. So we did, but his levels just continued to stay low for weeks, turned into months. And in that time period, he wasn't getting the chemo, and your brain starts to wonder, because of this virus, which is a very common virus, parvovirus, that kids get all the time, is the cancer going to come back? You know, so that was a very difficult period, trying to keep calm and not freak out that he's not getting the chemo he needs to fight the cancer, but we're going to trust our oncologist on this and know that delays are normal in treatment, and hope that this works out. But that's actually why he ended up doing 3.5 years of treatment instead of 3 years, to tack on the extra time that
because he missed some. Yeah. All right, let's give the microphone back to Scott. So, okay, you're 3, you get diagnosed, you go through these treatments. Can you answer for me, were you ever able to kind of do some of the normal childhood stuff? Could you go to preschool? Could you go to kindergarten? Were you able to do that kind of stuff?
No, I wasn't, and like I wasn't allowed to play any sports because like I had a port, and
right.
They need that to get the medicine to my heart to pump it to the blood.
So what, a needle goes in and puts in the medicine into that port, and then it gets into your blood that way?
It goes into my heart, and then it pumps through my bloodstream. And so if that somehow got like damaged, if I was like throwing a football and it hit my chest, then that would like it would delay my treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't allowed to do sports, and I wasn't allowed to. I didn't really go outside the house because if I had gotten like the flu, then that would have been a big deal.
Yeah.
Like even like a small cold would have been like it would have hurt my labs a little bit, and so I was kind of like living life in a bubble. But now I feel very lucky to still be here.
Mm-hmm. No, you are a walking testimony of again the importance of research and great treatment. You went through, was it 3.5 years?
Mm-hmm.
So you get all the way to 6 years old, 6.5. I mean, first of all, was every birthday party just epic? I mean, was this your family just going crazy every time they threw you a birthday party? Could you have friends over for birthdays? What were those like?
I think I just spent it mostly at like home and stuff. They would like come home with a cake and like we would eat it at home, but like,
we were scared to go too far away. But we would go Great Wolf Lodge, you know, places nearby, so that if anything happened, we could make it back to the hospital.
How did your guys' lives change during his treatment in terms of, you know, now you're not worried about martial arts, you're worrying about how to get him back and forth and stay tethered to a center where he can get treatment?
Yeah, pretty much everything revolved on around making sure he got what he needed. And we used to be planners. You know, we planned out trips, we planned out things 6 to 12 months in advance. And with cancer, you just can't do that because if he had a fever, even if it was related to a cold, we'd have to take him to the emergency room just to make sure it wasn't an infection.
Yeah.
So that became the way of life for us. And we learned to take spontaneous trips like, oh, well, it seems like he's doing okay. Maybe we can go to the beach today. And it was no longer planning ahead. It was learning to live in the moment.
Right. Was there ever a time where you guys kind of turned a corner in terms of your thinking and your mindset and not, I'm sure the early years, the early days and weeks, it's fear all the time, 24 hours a day. Was there ever a clearing, even while he's still in the middle of treatment, where there's some normalcy that returned?
Yeah, it was actually a St. Baldrick's event.
Okay.
Because...
Were you involved yet with him at all? Or?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't involved, but I knew that he was approaching, 3 months into treatment, he was approaching the most difficult phase. And it was called delayed intensification.
Okay.
And that's when he would lose his hair. And I was reading the newspaper and saw that St. Baldrick's was having their downtown Raleigh event coming up soon. And
what year? This is
2012.
Okay.
And so I was talking with my husband and older son at the time, and they said, you know, maybe we can shave our heads so when Scott loses his hair, he won't be the only person at home without hair. Then we can raise awareness and research funding, and yeah, that might be a good experience. I said, sure, sign them up.
All the men in your life are gonna not have hair, so why not? Let's do it. Yeah.
And then Scott chimed in. He said, well, I want to do it too. And I said, I wasn't prepared for that because I didn't want him to have that stereotypical bald cancer kid look. And so I said, you know, Scott, you're going to lose your hair soon enough. You don't have to do it early. And he was very persistent. I said, well, let's just think about it. Give it some time. Well, he kept bugging me about it.
She's trying to talk you out of it, buddy. That's what was going on. Mother knows best.
Yeah.
No.
But his stubbornness kicked in. He's like, Mom, I really
He gets that from
want
his
to do
dad, I bet.
Yeah. He's like, I really want to do it. And I said, you know, I thought about it, and something clicked. I had an epiphany. And it's like, you know, you look back on your life the last few months, and you're thinking, cancer has robbed us of so much in an instant. We didn't ask for it. We didn't want it, but it just came in like a hurricane.
You won the bad lottery. Yeah.
And why let cancer continue to dictate one more thing when he's going to lose his hair? And I remember talking to moms of kids in clinic who said, yeah, Brian went to sleep last night with a head full of hair, and when he woke up, it was like just laying on his pillow. And I thought, well, that's traumatic.
Yeah, exactly. Scars them. Yeah.
I don't know that we want to go through that. But, you know, changed my mind. I'm like, let's let Scott do it on his terms, lose his hair when he wants to, and say, take that, cancer. And that day was a major turning point because I didn't know how he would react when he saw himself without hair. And
did it go down to the skin, or was it still a little bit of fuzz?
No fuzz.
Oh, wow. Okay. They scalped you. All right.
And he had seen other kids in clinic that were bald, and I'm sure he was wondering if that was going to happen and when. But when he saw himself, he was on stage. He was all smiles,
everybody's
dimples.
cheering. Yeah.
And we actually, it shocked me that we were celebrating the loss of his hair, not mourning it.
Yeah.
And so we realized at that point, we don't have to just be reactive to cancer anymore. We can be proactive. We can do things along the way, and we should do these things as a family. We've got a platform now. So that was a turning point for us. We realized
it's amazing.
We can change things up here.
Yeah. Let's back to Scott if we can. Can you give me some of the good days of treatment when you were going through treatment? Can you give me some good memories that you had, whether it was trips that you went on or family time? What are some of the good days that you remember?
So after like the really long treatment days, my dad would take me to like tons of restaurants nearby that I like really liked. And
like what? Give them a plug. Give them a shout out.
Oh, I like K&W.
K&W? What is that?
It's like a
cafeteria. That's what I thought. Okay, yeah, because you get to pick whatever you want. Did you get head right for the desserts, or were you a good boy? Okay.
I ate like roast beef because like.
Oh, that's my favorite. Yes. Okay. Roast beef.
Salt
okay.
And green. And I got that, and I got.
Just you and him went?
No, me and Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, just you and your dad. Okay. Good time together.
Then sometimes I would remember being in a hospital because I got like a cold.
Yeah.
And I would stay in there for 2 days, and me and my dad were like super close to each other, and we were like eating the fried chicken lunch the next morning. And
for breakfast?
No. For lunch.
Okay.
And yeah, that was really good.
Yeah. Boy, you and food seem to be. And by the way, I didn't mention this yet because if you're watching on YouTube, you can see within arm's reach of Scott is a whole bunch of root beer flavored candy, 5 bottled root beer. That's the preference. He's got. Do you have a sweet tooth, or is it just root beer? Like what's up with you and root beer?
I don't know. I just really like root beer.
Did you get hooked like when you were a little kid? No. Okay, this is a recent thing.
Kind of.
Yeah. Well, we've told him he cannot leave this room until he finishes these 5 bottles of root beer, all this candy. So he's going to be on a sugar high for the rest of the day. So you went through treatment for 3.5 years. Yeah. Do you remember when the doctor said, "That's it. Yeah, this is your last treatment. You're good to go"?
I don't remember that, but I remember after my treatment was over, they took out my port. I remember that, and that was after my treatment was done. I was like so happy that.
I mean, you had that the whole time, right? So did that now mean you could do sports? Your brother could beat you up? Like he'd been waiting for 3 years.
I had been beating him.
Oh yeah, it's unfair. He could not retaliate because you could hit him, but he couldn't. He'd probably get busted if he did something to you.
Yeah, and so it was just like this bump in my chest for like 3.5 years of my life, and I didn't even like think that much about it unless like my mom would ask you, "What do you want to do when you're off treatment?" And it was like, "I want to get my port out."
Yes. Yeah, and you probably used to have to always wear baggy clothes, right? Because you didn't want something snagging on it or whatever. Speaking of which, we got you one of these Sport Clip shirts that's baggy, but you'll grow into it. They do it with passion or don't do it at all. You've done something with passion. I saw a YouTube clip. In fact, we might cut to it right here in a second. But you went, was that Washington, D.C.? Is that where is that where that was? And you gave a speech in front of, tell what was that thing that you did that was so, it blew me away. What was that?
So that was at the caucus, and so I went to this humongous room. There's like tons of people in these chairs.
You're what, 7 years old at the time?
7.
Okay, so you're done with treatment, and you're there in front of this big room, and
I'm like just talking along about the need for an increase in NIH funding and to fund.
And what kind of funding?
National Institutes of Health.
Okay.
And the STAR Act, we wanted to sign the STAR Act into law that year, and now the STAR Act has passed, and what we want this year is to actually fund the STAR Act, because it's signed into law and we want to fund it. STAR Act stands for Survivorship Treatment Access Research, and so that year I was just talking. That was my first year I've been, and I've been almost every year since then.
Have you spoken again?
I've been into meetings and
Okay.
I've spoken.
Okay. Because if they needed to get funded, they probably should have you come give another speech, because the time you were there is when the law got passed, right? So obviously you're very convincing.
Yeah, a year later.
And how did you write that speech yourself, or how did that work?
My
No,
mom
your
did.
mom.
And
Okay.
she just told me to like memorize it.
You had it down, like memorized. I even saw like you would stop where you knew they were going to clap for you. You would stop and let them clap, or if they were going to laugh in some of the parts of it. So
sometimes, like when I give a speech, they clap because they think I'm like, I don't know, maybe they think I'm finished. But it's like
you're like, hey, let me finish here. Come on.
I said like 5 words, and then they start clapping sometimes.
Well, it's just you'll get this. You'll understand this when you're an adult. When kids say something intelligently and it makes sense, we're so shocked that we want to applaud for them, right? No, you have a cause, you have a mission, and everybody's passionate about it. So, which is why I'm giving you this passion T-shirt.
It's really interesting because, Congress is used to seeing adults every day, but it's not every day that kids are there.
It's tough to dismiss a kid, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially one that survived cancer. So
in our meetings, I would prep him beforehand and say, this is what we're here today for. This is what we're asking for. And I didn't know if he was soaking it in, but he was.
Yeah.
And so we went into our meeting with our representative, David Price, and I said, Scott, if there's anything you want to say before the meeting, I said, if there's anything you want to say, they want to hear from you. So feel free to chime in. So we start the meeting, I'm going into, our requests. And then towards the end, Scott says, I'd like to say something if that's okay. And
this is not a prepared speech, right? Okay.
And I thought, what is he going to say? And so we all kind of shift our attention to turn to Scott, and he said, childhood cancer is the #1 disease killer of kids in the U.S., and we need help to change that. And I think co-sponsoring the STAR Act is a step in the right direction. So can I count on you?
Oh my goodness, man. You laid it to them, dude.
And Congressman Price, he's paused and he sighed. He said, well, I will do my very best. And within a week, we got an email from his staffer saying that he had signed on.
Wow.
I said, Scott, this is the power of advocacy. And at a young age, you're already doing this. So every year since then, he has been our closer, where he rounds it out and applies the pressure on the request. But, I think part of this is the reason why he's still here, because it wasn't that long ago, as you know, that kids, even with his type of leukemia, didn't have many options. And so they were told just take them home and keep them comfortable.
Yeah.
And now kids with his type of leukemia have a greater than 90% cure rate.
Wow.
And they've come
Amazing.
up with new discoveries that even kids with recalcitrant leukemia or hard to treat recurrent leukemia, they are starting to have treatment options as well. And that's the power of research.
Yeah.
But what we want is for this to happen for all kids with cancer, not just a select few.
Yeah.
And that's why we're passionate. That's why we return year after year.
Well, you just referenced it, Nancy. I do know about it. Scott is, this is like a before and after story, because in 1982, my brother was diagnosed at 3 years of age with the same exact type of cancer that Scott has. I was the older brother. What's your older brother's name?
Nick.
Nick, all right. I was the Nick in the situation, and I remember going back and forth to the hospital. We were at Walter Reed Hospital in Maryland, and 3 years in at 6, whereas you're finishing your treatment, my brother passed away at 6 because there wasn't that much advancement at the time. So now here we are 30-some years later, and I'm sitting down with a grown-up version of my brother, right? He didn't make it to 10, 11 years old. You're getting ready to turn 11. So I'm thrilled by your story, your advocacy. It's working. You're a hero, whether you know it or not. So I want you to keep doing some great work. I got a couple questions, and then we're going to finish this thing, okay? First, in the 80s, it's a long time, but you see Stranger Things? Are you allowed to watch Stranger Things? Did you watch Stranger Things 3? Yeah? The third season?
And 1 and
Okay.
2.
Okay. Well, the third season, when they're at the mall, the Starcourt Mall and all that stuff, like that's the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So back in the 80s, that's when my brother was sick, and we got to go on a Make-A-Wish trip to Disneyland. So I hear rumor that you have been not just to Disneyland at one time, but a couple times, and was one of them with Make-A-Wish?
I've been to Disney World once.
Disney World, that's right. Disneyland's California. Disney World in Florida.
So I went once with Make-A-Wish, and
Yeah.
then I've been like.
And now you're hooked.
tons.
Yes.
1 year we went like 3 times.
Uh-huh. Do you guys have an annual pass yet, or?
We did.
Okay, all right.
We had the annual pass. that
Okay,
year.
all right. That was smart.
And then we went like very recently. We went on a 9-day trip.
To Disney World, the Epcot Center,
Yeah,
Animal
we came
Kingdom.
back, like a week ago, and like maybe a little more than a week ago, but we went there for 9 days. That's fun.
Didn't you get sick of it after 9 days?
No.
No?
It's
You
not
could
fun.
live there,
It's
huh?
Disney World.
What? So, how old were you when you did the Make-A-Wish one?
6.
Were you still undergoing treatment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, when you went, did they pick you up in a limousine and all that kind of stuff, or do you remember?
No, I don't think so. But we didn't just go to Disney World. We went to Legoland and
Oh, okay.
Universal too.
Okay. You tore up Orlando. Yeah,
Yeah.
you went all over. And you're getting ready tomorrow. You're
Yeah.
going on a cruise?
Yeah, Disney cruise.
Wait, it's a Disney cruise? Oh, you left that part out when we were talking earlier. You are hooked on Disney.
Yeah.
All right, so Disney cruise, what are you looking forward to about the Disney cruise? What have you seen that you're like, I gotta do that while I'm there?
Mickey bars.
The Mickey bars?
Yeah. It's
So what
like
is that?
chocolate covered ice cream on a stick.
Okay, and you're gonna that's gonna be breakfast, lunch, dinner. You're gonna wake up in the middle of the night
Well, you
and
get
go
like
have some.
infinite Mickey bars.
Right, yeah, of course. I mean, you're gonna get spoiled. And your brother and sister get to go on this? Everybody's going?
Yeah, everything.
Wow. Okay, well, hey, you deserve it. You deserve it. So your parents deserve it. So when did we find out, maybe this is a mom question, that actually let's have mom answer this one first, okay? The 3.5 years are up. You guys have survived the treatments, the touch and go moments, all that kind of stuff. How does this get finished? What do they tell you? What do they say? Like, once the treatment's done, clean bill of health, we got to check them every week. Walk me through that for those that aren't familiar.
What's interesting is when you're first diagnosed, you're really scared of chemo and what that's going to do, because you know all the side effects are going to accompany that. And then towards the end of treatment, you change and you're like, oh, you know, the chemo's kept the cancer away for 3 years now,
Right.
and then we're not going to have our security blanket.
Right. Yeah.
What does that
true.
mean? And you start to get a little worried, you know, with worries that you didn't think you'd have before you're like, oh, I can't wait till we're done with treatment. So those were concerns that we had, but it didn't take long to just soak up the life of normalcy again. And he still had to go back every month for the first year.
Okay.
For, I think it was every 2 weeks in the beginning, and then they just kind of lengthen it. So then every month for the first year to check labs, just to make sure lab levels look good, nothing funky happening. And then year 2, he would go every 2 months, year 3, every 3 months. So he's at every 4 months now. He's going later this month.
And nothing but, you know, great news every time you've gone?
There have been some blips with his labs, like that's why he's going back this month.
Okay.
Just, you know, in the back of your mind, you just...
Yes, of course. I mean, once you've gotten the very first phone call ever, you think that it could happen.
Yeah. So there have been concerns, and the other thing is, even if kids like him are lucky enough to make it through treatment, 2/3 of childhood cancer survivors go on to have long-term, chronic, often serious side effects. So that can be hearing loss, heart defects, infertility, graft versus host disease, second cancers. You know, the list goes on and on. So we'll always be on the lookout for those things, but for now, he's just embracing life. He started doing triathlons and...
Oh, wait, what? You did not mention that. You had told me that you're playing basketball.
I mean, yeah.
So,
I played basketball,
okay.
I've done triathlon this year.
How?
And I've done 4 before this year.
How can you possibly be that athletic when you got such a late start? Are you trying to make up for lost time? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah? What is it about triathlons that you love?
Funding. And you can choose like 3 different courses. And yeah, it's pretty fun.
Have you ever done, are you an American Ninja Warrior fan or anything like that?
I don't watch it a lot, but I know I watched it.
I could see you crushing the course is what I'm saying. So
I've done the Tar Heel Youth triathlons too, because we live like super close to the UNC Wellness Center. And yeah, I've done a triathlon with them too.
Have you ever been to a basketball game? Tar Heel basketball game? Yeah? Oh, you look at me like I'm crazy for even asking that. You're like, yeah, I sit in the front row. I'm their biggest fan. Shoot, okay, well maybe you can invite me sometime. I was going to invite you if you hadn't been, but here's what I want to do. Do you have anything else you want to add that's just on the top of your head that you want to mention about surviving cancer, being an advocate, a hero, an athlete? Is there anything that you want to mention before I get to kind of the fun questions at the end?
Well, there's always room for more funding and more support. And so there's a ton of things that you can do to just raise a little bit more research. And so even if that's just like shaving your head, buying a shirt, doing something like that, you can still help no matter like what. And so every little bit helps with cancer research. And so you don't know, maybe you could save some kid's life by doing that. By shaving your head and raising $3. Like, you don't know. So every single thing helps.
I love it. You're exactly right. This is what we at Sport Clips, we sponsor, we did $1 million 2016 through 2019. We've re-upped for that. We do braid the shave events where our stylists go out and actually shave the people's heads. We host, in fact, I know there's some that we host the braid the shave events. So what Scott just said, for those of you that are Sport Clips folks that are listening, that everybody can do a little bit more, and you never know the difference that you're going to make. I encourage y'all, whether it's participating in a Brave the Shave, donating, doing something in your store, raffles, all of that kind of stuff to raise awareness and funding. Do whatever it takes, because Scott, Nancy, they are living proof that research works and funding works. So, you ready for these questions? You do not have any idea what these are going to be, just so you know. All right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you could have one superpower, all right? So think about all the Marvel heroes, superheroes, and Batman, the DC comic ones. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Teleportation.
Why you let me stall? I was trying to give you time to think about an answer. Teleportation. Why would it be teleportation? What's
You can get anywhere in like 2 seconds.
It's not because you want to like scare people and just show up and like freak them out. Okay, it's for your own convenience that you just want to. I bet I know where you would teleport. Disney World. Yes. Shoot. Well, my next question. You're going to answer this. I was going to say the next question was, if you could visit anywhere in the world, it doesn't have to be Orlando.
Okay.
Anywhere in the world. How about this? That you've never been to.
Okay.
Where would it be?
Rome, Italy.
Rome. What do you think? Is it pizza? Like what do you think you would like in Rome?
Just seems like majestic.
Yeah, the architecture and the history. Man, you are deep. Okay, what noise or sound do you love? Like hearing it makes you go, yes.
I don't know. That's a weird one.
Yeah, I told you these are gonna be. You weren't gonna be able to expect these, buddy.
I don't know. I like zipping up a zipper.
You like that sound, okay?
Yeah.
The zip. All right, now you know how to make them happy for Christmas, Mom. Here we go. What noise or sound do you hate?
When someone scrapes like a fork on a plate.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or like if a fork and a knife like scrape, that bothers me.
So next time you're misbehaving at home, that's what Mom's gonna do, just to get at you, make you stop. All right, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, I want to be a video game developer.
Oh, so you're a gamer.
Yeah.
Okay, Fortnite or what is your game of
Fortnite.
choice right now?
So I was playing Fortnite earlier, and I've been grinding on Minecraft like so much.
Did you develop a love for video games while you're going through treatment? Is that where you were, because you were home?
I mean, kind of.
Yeah. It's just because you're a 10 or 11-year-old boy. Of course, you're gonna like video games. Okay, I got 2 more questions. Question number 1: what is your of all the memories with your family? What is your favorite memory?
Probably. So we went on a skiing trip. That was really fun.
What was it? Asheville? Where'd you guys go? Asheville?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were like sitting every night. We would like sit in front of the fire and just like watch Netflix after like tons of snowboarding and skiing. That was fun. Yeah, I like that.
Okay. All right, Mom. You know what?
I like Disney World too.
Okay. I'm gonna edit that part out. We knew Disney World. We wanted something. So okay, now we know that you like the snow. All right. This one's gonna be a toughie. I'm gonna see if I can stump you with the last question before I let you go back, drink all this root beer, and play video games for the rest of the day. What have you learned from your mom or dad that you want to be able to be like when you're a dad one day? Like what thing? Like you said, that's important. What they've done for me in this area. That's how I want to be as a dad.
Like knowing everything.
Oh, okay. Is that both of them that know
Mom
everything?
knows a lot of
Mom,
stuff.
okay, all right.
Dad
Yeah.
knows.
Okay. Oh no! You should have just stopped while you're ahead. Mom, it's Mom. Mom knows a lot of stuff. She's the one driving you home, buddy, and with all these root beers. So just knowing everything, knowing what's best, all that kind of stuff. I love that. So you're amazing. You guys, thank you so much. You guys are amazing. I love, this getting to sit down with you, and here you are. You got a head full of hair. Which, by the way, Sport Clips in Raleigh, watch out! This guy's coming for a haircut soon. And you're playing sports. You're getting these amazing trips, living and getting to spend time with your family. We didn't really even get to talk much about what your mom does at St. Baldrick's, but obviously you guys are still involved. That was a turning point in your lives, obviously. So. Want to thank y'all for joining us, and thank everybody out there for supporting St. Baldrick's Foundation. Keep it up. It matters and it works, as these guys are able to attest. So thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, and we'll have another episode next week. Tune in then. Thank you. Good job, buddy. You did great.
How long?